Hello, my name is Trey Gordner, and I'm a policy researcher at UHERO. Today I'm here to speak with you about a recent study on construction defect litigation sponsored by the Hawaii Homeownership Center. If you aren't familiar with this term already, construction defects are flaws in the design or construction of a building. Liability is the legal responsibility that the people who built that building bear for those flaws, and construction defect litigation is what happens when owners or associations argue that there are flaws and that they should be compensated, lawsuits, right? So this is the scope of our study. And I want to emphasize we are economists, we're not lawyers, and so we do not make any claims about the legal merits of the cases. What we're looking at are the economic impacts on housing affordability and home ownership. And so we focus on three areas. The first is statistical trends in litigation, both the number of cases and the number of units affected. We look at the impacts on builders and what that can mean for housing affordability. And we look at the impacts on buyers and owners and what that can mean for home ownership. So our first major takeaway is that we see more and larger cases over time. We looked at public records of legal action going back to the 1990s, and we see a clear trend over time that these cases are becoming more frequent from when they were very rare in the 90s to about one case a year into the 2000s to 2, 3, and even 4 cases a year on average in recent decades. And we use a 10-year trailing average here because of what's called the statute of repose. So what the statute of repose means is that if you find a defect, you believe you found a defect in a home or building that you own, you can bring a lawsuit against the developer in state law anywhere 10 years after that building was constructed. And so looking at the last 10 years is the right window to understand the real trend. It's not just cases, though. We're also seeing a steady rise in the size of those cases. So in the early years of the 2000s and even the 2010s, a typical case might encumber 60, 100 units at a time. Now what we're seeing is that in recent years, a large case could encumber thousands of units at the same time. Our second takeaway is on the builder side, on the housing production side. So we find that as a result of construction defect litigation, we could see fewer, pricier homes being built in Hawaii. There are 3 reasons for this. The first is that there are hard costs associated with construction. So developers will change their design and the materials that they use to more resilient, more expensive materials, not only in response to lawsuits filed against them, but also lawsuits filed against any developer operating in the area. The second reason is for soft costs. These are costs that are involved in construction, but don't go directly into the building, right? Directly into the ground. They involve insurance, legal costs, and other overhead. Developers and other industry experts report that they're seeing increases in their insurance premiums and decreases in the terms. So the insurance premiums are rising steadily, they're covering less over time, and the deductibles are greater. And those costs are also factored into the final cost of housing, as well as the actual costs of lawyers to defend in these cases. And then the final way that home affordability can be affected is through strategic adjustments. And so developers make decisions about where to invest and what to build all the time, and their decisions may change if they believe that a unit is subject to litigation. So developers go from building fewer starter condos, that's smaller units, smaller, more affordable units for sale, to larger, less affordable units for rent. There's less legal risk and more margin in those options, and litigation is a factor in some of these decisions. And for our third and final takeaway, we look at the housing consumption side. What are the effects on home ownership, on people looking to buy a home in Hawaii? And what we find is that there are effects on home buyers, particularly as it relates to the terms of their mortgages. So when home buyers try to buy one of these units, as soon as the unit is encumbered by litigation, it's no longer eligible for public programs that allow for lower down payments and below market interest rates, such as FHA loans and VA loans. mortgages on those units are also ineligible to be resold in the secondary mortgage market through Fannie and Freddie. Because banks have to keep those mortgages on their books as what are called portfolio loans, they charge additional interest rates and scrutinize borrowers more closely than they might otherwise. Some bankers have told us that the increase can be 0.25% to 0.5% on the loan. At current interest rates on a typical home of $1 million in Hawaii, that translates to about $100 a month extra that needs to be spent in interest, or $36,000 over the life of the loan. Homeowners also face some hidden costs as a result of litigation. So the condo association or the attorneys may recommend to defer maintenance, which can add to maintenance bills down the road as a case like this is adjudicated for a couple of years. And they can also have trouble selling their unit potentially, or taking out a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit, accessing their equity for the same reasons that it's challenging for home buyers to take out mortgages on these units. So thank you very much. If you're interested in learning more, you can read the full report at UHERO.hawaii.edu.